So when I'm making my pulp, I add a few different things. This is a blue pulp that I have here. I've actually done this with food coloring and I've put some scents in it as well. So I chose tea tree oil this time so that you can have a little aromatherapy with your paper. Yes? And then also let's talk about the method. So one way to take this pulp from here to here is going to be using a blender. So if you have an art blender, I would not suggest using your food processing blender because you do not want those paper particles to be inside of your food. No matter how much you rinse it or how much you wash it, it's still in your blender. So if you have a blender that you're like, I don't really need it, or it's going, it'll be a good idea to use that over and over. Another option, if you don't have a blender, is actually just using a bottle, just a bottle. So I took an empty bottle, this is like a Snapple bottle, and I took some of this paper here and I put it inside and I let it soak overnight. All you have to do is shake it up and it starts breaking down the paper. Now, depending on how smooth you want your paper to be, you could shake or blend it as long as you want. The longer, the smoother. And then if you want to have fun and see some of that writing and some chunkiness, the bottle works really, really well. It's also something that's good for doing wishes or things you want to let go of. I've done that activity many times. You write yourself a letter or something you want to repurpose, you shake it up and you make a new sheet of paper out of it. So super fun to do that. Now, let's talk about actually getting the paper started, okay? So yesterday I made some paper, so I already had some pulp. This is the pulp from yesterday, which I'll show how you can strain it and put it together and dry it so that you can use the pulp again later. That's what's really cool about this project too. Just because you did it once doesn't mean you're done. You could save it and be set up to make some quick paper next time. I used turmeric for my paper. It became this paper. Yeah, it became this paper with a pressed flower. So when I was done, you see how I have all this pulp here? Really important, and I'll say it again at the end when we get to the cleanup portion, you cannot pour this pulp straight down into your drain. Like that, right? Not a good idea. It's gonna clog, it's gonna get stuck together. It's literally like taking a wad of paper and shoving it down your drain. So you have to filter it. So what you do is you take this, and I'm going to demo it at the end. You take this pulp and water, you're going to put it through so you could separate the water from the pulp. And all you're doing is collecting the pulp and putting them into small balls like this. Sit them out in the sun and try to get them completely dry. Yes, completely dry. That way, you can put them inside of a baggie and come back later and go, oh my gosh, I made this amazing recipe with turmeric and all of this brown recycled paper, and I really want to do it again. Ah, perfect. I could just grab it from my bag, put it into water, and then it will rehydrate again and become what you see here. Also know that pulp and pulp sheets are also available as well. So you can always buy these materials, but this is really fun to me to see what I can make and make different recipes every time. So these are little pulp balls. All I'm going to do is put them into the water. If I was making with fresh pulp, I would just be pouring this inside of here, but I want to use that beautiful rose color that I used yesterday. So I'm going to show three different types of paper. The first one, we're just going to show how to lay flowers on top. And I'm going to show different types of frames and different molds that you can use to make the paper. Really quick, so you know, when you're putting in your pulp, the ratio of water to pulp changes how thick or thin your paper is going to be. So if I want really thick paper, I want a lot of pulp. If I want really thin paper, I want to have as little pulp to the ratio of water. And I think this is going to be a thinner paper because of that ratio. Okay, so I've broken it all up and you can see it's just these little fibers. Some pieces I left kind of big inside of here, but I think that's the beauty of the paper. So let's look at our different molds that we could use. So we have these little traditional mold and decal. Yeah, the decal here goes on top and we use this one. I have a bigger size in here. You can also use, if you have one of these hoops, you can put a cheesecloth or some type of strainer or some type of fabric, and you can use this to also shape your paper. And then cookie cutters, really awesome. I actually did these right here with cookie cutters. Yeah, and I'll show what it is to actually ladle and pour in the pulp rather than what you're going to see right now, which is to pull the paper. So that's an option as well. And then if we get fancy, which this one is really, really cool, this mold and decal, it comes on top and then actually it pulls out here. And I'm going to show how. So I'm going to show 3 different ways that you can get this done. And I'm going to pull a little bit of smaller paper just so we can move a little quickly. Okay, so first thing, super important, when you have your molds, you're going to see this like deeper side in here, and then you're going to have a little shallower side with the screen right here. You want to be on the shallow side. It is possible to use this deeper side, but it is harder to flip over and release the paper. So it's possible. This is my method. There are so many different ways to pull paper and flip. I'm just giving the most basic way to do it. So I want to be on the shallow end where the screen is. And then sometimes in your kits, you'll get this extra little screen, this little piece of screen right here that you can put in between the mold and the decal, and it'll go on top like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the action, which is to pull paper. You're going to bring the mold down into the bottom. Now you can either scoop really deep, which will get you more pulp, or you can keep it thin. Yes? So it's always nice to do a little test sheet so you can see if you like the thickness of the paper or not. Yes? So you can pull one and then you could test it and say, "Ooh, I like it." Or you could say, "That's not working for me." And you add more water. If you want to keep it really thin too, and you're not wanting to change water at the time, you just come up from the top. Just don't go as deep. Now this is a real thin sheet. You could see that. Remember how it was darker earlier? This one's nice and thin, so you could see almost light. Sometimes you can put your hand behind it and you'll be able to see how thin. So let's try our first one. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to transfer my paper first on this tea towel. Later I'll show you another method, but the first one's going to happen on this tea towel. So step 1, we dip. We do a little shimmy. We see if we like the thickness or if we want to get a little thinner. If something happens where you get like a hole like this, the great part about pulp is that you can go in deep, see if you can find some, and literally patch the hole yourself, right? And you can cover it and flip it, because sometimes you get such a beautiful piece and you're like, "I can't let you go." So then you could just put a nice little piece of pulp inside. Okay. There we go. So this is the part where you want to decorate. Right after you've dipped and you pulled the paper, it's really nice to sit it on the side so that it doesn't leak everywhere. And this is where you want to do decorations, because you want it to be wet, right? What's happening with the paper is that cellulose fibers are bonding together, right? Hydrogen bonds, using all those plant-based materials, and they're starting to thread together. Whatever it is you want to add in, you want it to be there wet. You also want it to be on this side so that when you flip it, it is going right down and it gets a chance to really get sticky together. Yeah. So if I'm working on this piece and say I want to add some flowers, I'm going to take this beautiful little flower here and I'm going to press it on. Or maybe I'm going to go inside. I have some different flowers in here that I've been saving. Whenever my husband gives me flowers, I keep them and then I save them for later. So that's really good too. Also, flowers give your paper beautiful dye. If I had some marigolds, I would love to show you that. The marigolds dye your paper such beautiful colors. You can actually see it on this tea towel. That was from some paper I made with marigolds. Okay, so I'm keeping a little minimal, but if this is what I like and I love what I see, you're going to take off the decal, pull it off. Now, I tell everybody, not a good idea to leave this in there. I think we all know, right? If we're trying to keep our tools working, they're going into water over and over again. I want to keep this as dry as I can and not let water keep seeping in. So, because I chose to use the screen, I can just pull this right off, which is something I really, really love. So I can pull this right off. What I'm going to do is next step, we're going to do a little flip like this. Really important. You're going to use a sponge because we want to be able to lift that screen off of the tea towel, and we won't be able to do it with how much water is there. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to sponge away any excess water, and that water can go right back into the pot, right? Because we can just use it again. And you'll feel it. The test that I always do to make sure the paper is gonna lift is I start at the corner, and if it's still hanging on for dear life, that means I need to get some more water out so that I can peel. And voila, there it is, right? My first piece of paper that I've pulled, right? And that was using the screen connected here and then transferring it over, okay? For our next piece, I'm actually going to get rid of the screen, and we're not going to use the screen this time, so you could see just in case you don't have that. Earlier I said all of the different tools that you can use to make paper, recycle paper. One thing people always ask is, can I use magazines or can I use this? I would not recommend using anything with a gloss on it. But something really, really fun is that you can use stencils like these or any type of cutout, and you can actually make cutouts from your magazine. Yes, make little cutouts from your magazine that you can use and actually use them to press on to your paper. So we're going to make another one, and we're going to use it without the screen, and we're going to pull off and put a little bit of decoration. So let's pull again. Let's get a thicker sheet. Make sure as you shimmy up that you are being so careful. Yeah, if we get rough with the water, that's how we get tears, and that's how we get holes. Okay, this time I'm going to decorate again. Super important to have rags next to you for your hands because there's nothing worse than getting all your beautiful dried flowers wet and then you can't really crunch them or get them the way that you want. So let's use a little bit of our magazine cutouts. If you could see, they're different shapes, flowers, butterflies, and we have a little bit of floral. So I'm going to take a couple, I'm going to put them down, right? And I'm also going to do, I like this one. This one's actually from a note that someone wrote me on a post-it. You can kind of see the lettering that's there from their words. I'm going to do another trick that's really, really cool, is that you can actually use the tissue paper at different stages. This pulp, I added in this kind of deep like maroon tissue paper inside. I added the paper towel, the brown packaging things, but I also dyed it with tea, espresso coffee, vanilla, and then I added this peach envelope that I had inside of here, and that's what gave it this kind of rose color in here. So that's how we got that color. Now, it's fun to add things even after you're done, right? I can wet this beautiful piece of tissue paper and add it as a pop of color for my new piece of paper. So playing with the different stages of when you use paper is also fun too, because then it's going to show up at different times. Yep. Okay, this one doesn't have a screen, so that means I have to transfer from the mold straight to here, but it's super similar. So I'm going to carefully take this off, sit it to the side, and then I'm going to flatten it, make sure I don't hit the other one. Now you can see I'm looking through a screen here, that's connected. This one's going to be even more important that when you take out that water, which look how much water is inside that paper trying to hold our paper together. You want to make sure that you get every single corner because this one gets a little bit tricky to get out. Okay, time to do the test, right? We look at the corners, we try to get it to stick to whatever cloth we're using to lay down. And if we start lifting and our paper says no, that means that we need to pause, yeah, and take out some more water. Now, when you use some of these papers, you'll see that when you use some of these molds, you'll see that the paper kind of curled up because it was inside of the mold. Feel free to be gentle and just lay it down. Lots of the papers will be a little crinkly when they come out, but like that's what beautiful heavy books are for, right? So you can use a book when you're done and you see your creation and get your paper flat again. Okay, let's try the pour method really quick. I want you to be able to see what the pour method looks like in case you are at home and you want to try to make some of this. Now, if you do the pour method, it is nice to have a little screen that you can use. Just so you can pull it. So we're going to use that beautiful blue. I did an experiment and I dyed it twice because the first ones I did, they weren't super duper blue in the way that I wanted. They just kind of had this like little hue here. See, and I used another one of those stencils, but you could see the little blue speckles inside of here from also the blue tissue paper that I added to it. So I'm going to see after doing it double, will that make any changes to the color? So to do this one, I'm going to bring this over to the side. You can use a ladle, you can use a spoon, you could use your hand. This is a good experiment or a fun thing to do, maybe with like friends or grandkids. You could just use a cookie cutter, whatever it is. Right now, I'm going to use my little mold. So all you're going to do is take your pulp, and this will be a little chunkier because it's not sitting in as much water, because remember the ratio, it matters. So I'm going to take my paper and I'm just going to squish and put everything inside. Now, what's really fun about this is actually when you make paper from like fresh grass and things like that, you will actually be either cooking and breaking down those fibers, or you're just literally beating those fibers in to bring them together with a little bit of water. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now since I'm not pulling. And this will be a lot of fun. You'll also get some great dye on your fabric. And that's kind of a fun part for me. It might seem silly, but I love after I make my paper and I look at my tea towels, it just reminds me of all the fun things that I made and the materials that I used. Okay, so it's a little chunky. You can see it. It's a chunky blue baby, but that's okay. We love it. And then we're going to pull off, do the same exact thing. Set it to the side. Pull the paper and we're going to see what happens. And remember, as paper dries, the color kind of changes. Yeah. Oh, it's a heavy one. Do you see that? It's so heavy. Oh, let's see if this is going to work out. I'm a little scared. Ready? Whoa. Oh, I got a little flat, but this is the great part. When I get that sponge in there, I can flatten that baby out. Also, a really cool thing, if your paper's not the shape that you want, guess what you could do? You can literally cut it. Use that cookie cutter later to make it round. And paper is not going to be perfect every time. That's the exciting part. Okay, as long as I can lift this, we're good. Ooh, yay! It's actually a really good blue. Okay, now I know double is going to give us something different. And you can also smell that tea tree oil. It's such a good gift too. If ever you want to make a whole bunch, I've given away beautiful like stationery and you tie it with a cute little ribbon and hand it out. I absolutely love doing stuff like that. So giving it a scent is really, really beautiful and a really, really fun thing to do. I want us to take a look at one more. We're going to do one with the fancy, fancy one, and we're going to play with some words and we're going to play with some confetti. Okay? Um, Here's the beautiful thing with this one. Like I said, it gives you a lot of structure. It's easier if you want to make heavier paper. You saw with that like thinner screen, it was harder to flip over and get the paper that we wanted. So a lot of fun if you want to make heavier paper and want a little bit more strength to pull it in and to pull it out. We're also going to use some cooch paper instead this time. So if I was done with this, and there's so many drying methods, I'm gonna take this and I can put it on a clothesline. I can sit it on the ground in the sun so that it could dry. There's so many options for how to dry using a tea towel. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna sit it over here for 1 second so I can make more space for our next paper. Okay, we're gonna use fancy dancy. Yes. We're also going to be using these boards, which I'd love to show you. So these boards are just at art stores or Home Depots. They're really, really good to lay out and to use and to also flatten paper. Yes. Taking and putting the paper in between, going over and smushing to get excess water, but also to keep it flat. You can even stand on these two with your paper in between, and using couching paper, you can, I'm going to show you in a second, stack layers of paper on top of one another and then have a whole stack to put together, squish, and then take them out to dry. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. You, even if you have like, I don't know, last time I used some random like ply boards, they were really big, but I still used them, put them on top and stood on there with all my like tiny girl power and just flattened my paper that way. So this is why making paper is also really fun outside, because you could just get way messier than you can in your house. But alas, we are in my kitchen. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to put a board down and I'm actually going to use couching paper, which it's not that expensive, I don't think, but hey, we don't always want to spend money and we want to use a tea towel. So, but this is what's really cool about this paper is it gives you the opportunity to stack and stack and stack. It's a shortening for another French word that literally just means to lay down. You use the paper, it makes it easier. It just means paper. I mean, paper to lay things down on. The process they'll say is couching, which is just to put the paper down, like to put your stencil down. But couching paper makes it easier to do that process, if that makes sense. So couching is a process, and this is the paper to let you line and put a whole bunch of papers on top of it, rather than putting it on a tea towel that could have like ridges or patterns on it, which is fun. But it's just a nice, slim, smooth piece of paper that you can really pull a whole bunch of sheets on top of. You have to wet it a little bit so that it can stick together. So I'm going to get it a little bit wet, not too crazy. And I'll squeeze it out here. Now, the only thing I find when I use this paper, sometimes I am more susceptible to get bubbles in my paper, which is not the end of the world, but it does happen. So I'm going to lay that on top of the board. I like to use the board when I use this paper. It just gives me a little bit more structure. Tea towels are thicker, so it makes it a little easier. Some people use felt. There's another process to do with a different kind of felt, like a heavier one when you're making paper, but this one's a little thin. So I'm going to make some fun with some confetti and some words so I can show you. So we're going to make sure that our screen is inside, the decal on top, and we're going to come down inside like this. Try to do a little shimmy. This is so hard. I had a very big container. This is a container I just got from the dollar store, and it's going to be a thin sheet. that I got from the dollar store. So this is what I'm using today. See, you could see a little bit of the thin places. So this is exactly where I'm going to put some of my decorations so that it can connect the two. But always remember, you can go inside, grab a little piece like this, and also just lay it on top where the holes are. No one will ever know, right? If you gave a gift like this and the person picked it up and said, hey, that part's not the best, maybe they're not the person to give a gift to, right? They should say, I love it. So here it is. I'm going to take some beautiful confetti. This confetti is environmentally safe confetti. Yes, this is just made from hole punched tissue paper. Yeah, so I'm just going to use that for this one. This is when I teach young people how to make paper. This is the hit. They're all like, oh my gosh, please give me all that confetti. I mean, you can't go wrong with it. It's just so beautiful and it's so much fun. Look at that. And put it there. Another thing I like to do is I have these words. It's actually, so I teach fourth grade during the school year. These are their words from their spelling bee. These are just their words from their spelling bee. I really love to take and cut and put a couple words on my work. I just think it's beautiful. And it's fun to do it this way because you could still see the letters right away. When you put it into the water, the letters end up totally inside, which I'm going to show you for our last one how to do that. There we go. Yeah. Ooh, these are good words. We got gratitude, appreciation, and devotion. What a good day. Okay, now let's flip a different way, yeah? So, we take it off. We do the step of taking off the screen. And sometimes I like to clean this off a little bit because then it ends up sticking to your paper. Ooh, bonus, put that in the hole. Okay, we're gonna take this off. You can also give it a little extra shimmy if it's really wet. I'm gonna go the side route to flip this one. It's a little bit bigger. I'm gonna flip. And now, because this paper is so much bigger, it's gonna have a lot more water. You hear that? So much water. It's such a surprise every time. You're like, how does that one piece of paper hold that much? And it's gonna be even more when we squish it. Another fun thing, I don't know if you guys listen to audiobooks. When I'm having a bad week, making paper and just pulling paper, have an audiobook on or some music, it is so, so relaxing. Super relaxing. Okay, I think it's good. Pull from the corner, start going. You want to go nice and slow. If ever it starts ripping, put it right back down and go again. Ooh, and it's going to be a thin one. You could see because we can see through, so it's going to be a beautiful, like, thin sheet of paper. I could see all the little dots. Okay, last piece of paper we're going to pull is a piece of paper when you put your ingredients and decorations into the water. The only reason why I always do this at the end is because once you do it, you can't undo it. You cannot pull it out. And so that means forever your pulp is going to have whatever you put into the water. Now, we're using the cooching paper, which means we're going to wet this one and lay it right on top of the paper we were working with. So we're going to get it wet, which is so cool because then we could just work right on top, right on top, right on top. You want to make sure this is wet. Yeah, make sure it's okay. Wonderful. All right, let's do our last one that we're going to play with together. So what I'm going to choose is to put a whole bunch of petals in so that when we dip, we're just going to get so much more color inside of our paper. See, this is a hard thing about your hands getting wet. The crumble changes when you're working with the flowers. The crumble, it's so important. Ooh, this one's still crunchy. You can hear it, yeah? Still crunchy. And now this will integrate your flowers better. It'll be inside of your paper rather than just laying on top. And most likely you will end up with flowers on both sides of your paper. Yeah, and the colors are so pretty. You can have different colors. You can put big ones in there, small ones in there, whatever it is you want. Got a little bit of bigger petals. There we go. Yeah, and if I had some other oils, I would definitely be putting it in here right now. Another fun thing, like I showed you the words, if you're gonna do like a diary entry or something like that, it's a great time to also cut them in because now they won't be meshy and falling apart. Ooh, some of these words are interesting. Okay, let's play. Last piece of paper, and I'll pick a little bigger one. And I'm just going to do that traditional method, no screen. This is my favorite way to do it. No screen at all. And then we're going to come up. You're going to try to find the things that you want. Maybe you got to do a couple. It's a fun little game of catch. Fun little game of catch. And I'm going to put a little bit more in there. Oh yeah, I could see some in the middle, caught in the middle. And I'm going to add some. I love these flowers. They're so cute and they just give this little pop of color. See, and you could design however you want. You can add some. One of our words is stuck at the back. Let me see if I can. Okay, there we go. This is our last piece. And you'll see inside there are flower petals already caught in between. So then you can see the flower petals all the way through. And if I had more, I would just go crazy. Like so many flower petals, let them sink. Oh, I don't know if you could see this. One of our words is at the back. It says responsible, just one. I try to be responsible. Try very hard. Thank you, paper. Okay, listen to all that water. All of that water. Okay, make sure you get every corner. Even in this paper, I could see some bubbling happening. That is okay. You can always repurpose the paper. You need to, or cut out the bits that don't work. If it's a bubble in the middle and you have a small tool, you can poke a hole and try to flatten the paper the best that you can. So that's an option too. All right, let's see if we can lift. Seems like it's working. Yeah. Okay. We have a beautiful piece of paper. I'm going to lay the corners down, and it's a thick piece, which I love. There we go. Ooh, I feel the bubble. Sometimes I just try to push it out. Beautiful. We have our responsible paper with flower petals caught in between rather than just on top. So to show you really quick, last piece, if you want to use the boards, I would put the board on top, right? And do a nice little squish. Yeah. These luckily don't have a lot of water probably in them. I really went to town on the sponge. And then you would fold it. Now, what's really cool is you have so many options to dry your pieces of paper. You can, like I said, hang it on a clothesline and put it in the sun. But another thing you could do is actually transfer your paper onto your window, or like how I have these screens right here. You want to use a window because really the sun is coming through and beaming through and warming those pieces of paper. You take it from your tea towel or your kuching paper and you put it on top of the window. Let it seal. That water is going to seal it to the window. And then you peel the paper off slowly and it will just sit there. It also Like one time I had like 100 of pieces of this like smaller paper in all these different colors. For days, it looked like stained glass just coming through my window, and it was so, so beautiful. When it's dry, it usually starts peeling off itself. You'll see it. It'll start peeling away from the window, or you'll come in your kitchen and all these beautiful sheets of paper will be laying around on the table. So that's another option you can do to dry your paper. For cleanup, like I said, you do not want to put this down your drain. I have this bigger screen, which this is really fun to do, but I have this bigger screen. What I like to do is lay the screen down, either use the corner of your tub or use the corner of your sink, and I lay it down like this. And I'm going to take this paper here because it won't muddy up my rose paper. It'll just lighten it. So I'm going to take this pulp here to show you how to do it. And this is going to show you how to make the little pulp balls. So I would take this, I would strain it, let the water go through, pour that pulp right on top. Try to get all the goodies, right? You want all of it. Sometimes I even, because I want all of my paper, I pour a little water in and do one more strain. Also, all of these I got for like at the dollar store as well. These tins, they're great. They're great for paper making. So that's another thing. I take my pulp. I'm just gonna round it out, and I'm gonna squeeze out as much water as I can. As much water as I can. Now the good thing is, if some of these particles end up somewhere, this is all recyclable. You know what I mean? These are all fibers. So we're not like, oh no. So if some gets somewhere or you're outside, you're fine, but try to get as much as you can. Oh, I think we're gonna have one little baby one left. Okay, so usually I would be putting this whole thing onto the screen. You can see right here, I have these little pulp balls, and I would just keep them in that tin, bring them out in the sun, let them dry off completely, because it can get moldy, right? This is still wet paper hanging out, so you want to dry it. You don't want to put this inside of a bag and just let it sit there getting wet and moist. So you want to leave it somewhere to dry and save it. And it's good for travel if you're planning on making paper somewhere else, or just storing because you're going to be making a lot. And then that'll be a little later. I will get more of this, but that'll be your cleanup for the end. Take care of your hands. There's so much ink. I feel like as an artist, your hands are so important, and I do a lot of ceramics. Your hands just end up getting beat up. So make sure that you wash your hands really thoroughly because of the ink, or maybe you might get irritated from something that you were working with. And then make sure to put a lot of lotion on, right? Our body's super important, and we want to make sure that we feel good after we make the things that make us feel good. Yeah. So I always make sure to do that after. The screens are really great. Once you've peeled everything, you just dip them into water, and you also go put them outside or somewhere that they can sit and just dry off. There's not a lot of maintenance. If you don't leave them in your water, sitting there getting all loggy or whatever, then you're fine. You're going to be able to use these for a long time. I've had a lot of these for years where lots of people have used them. And so taking care of them means you can have them forever until, depends on how much paper you make. But yeah.
And really great demo, B. Thank you so much for walking us through that process and talking about the different tips and tricks and ways and substitutions that we can add in. It was a very enjoyable time. I'm excited to see how everyone's paper turned out when we try it out, for sure.
Don't forget, like and subscribe so you can be notified about our future videos.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye, everyone.